Welcome back to the Garden of Reason. I constantly have to remind myself the reason that I'm gardening. I'm growing for food, pure and simple, that's it. But I tell you, I have a habit of growing things just to see if I can grow them. Even if they won't do well here, I'll keep at it until I get it to grow. I will grow things that I don't even like to eat. I will try methods that sound too good to be true, and they generally are. I'll go into all different directions, and the Garden of Reason is keeping me on track. I am growing for food. Nothing much has changed in this garden since last week. Just the seeds that I planted have come up. That's the zucchini I planted, and then the purple whole peas. I have butter beans in this box and green beans in this one. And I'm glad that these are doing well because the ones out back aren't. I've been picking blueberries, and I don't think the birds got any of these. My pickle bush cucumbers are up, and these seeds were a couple of years old, and every one of them germinated. And the Georgia sweet onions are bulbing up. This is kind of funny. I planted this grapevine on this arch for ornamental value. I didn't care if I got any grapes off of it or not. Well, it's not exactly the vision of loveliness that I had thought of, but it is loaded with grapes. They're Concord grapes, and I'm hoping to can some grape juice. The grapes on the fence are doing well too. I've been working on the fence out back, and it's starting to look like a FEMA camp out there. Tropical Storm Andrea came through here, and it was the first normal rainfall I've had. Everything else up to now has been like hurricane force. This tropical storm was nothing. My cucumbers got mosaic last year, so I've been paranoid about getting cucumbers this year because I'm down to my last jar of pickles. And if all of these cucumbers make it, I don't know what I'm going to do. These are Israeli melons, and I started them indoors, hardened them off, and then all that rain hit us. So they suffered through the rain just like everything else did. And when I put them out here, they looked awful. They've improved a little bit, but I think these have been set back. They're watermelons, and they're probably going to get too much shade. Then all this out here is planted with corn, and it is just starting to come up. My tomatoes look like they were half dead when I planted them, but they've really made a comeback, and the deer pulled up 3 of my plants. I'm hoping to have that fence finished by tomorrow so they can't get in there anymore because that's getting ridiculous. But I have plenty of tomato plants. I planted beefsteak, opalka, Amish paste, super Italians, and homestead. I want to stake these plants up like Navajo Pie does his, but I haven't been able to find pressure treated 2x2s, so I had to settle for just regular 2x2s. And I've waited so long now that the ground is like concrete down there, and it took all I had to put that one stake out there. So hopefully I can slowly get all these stakes in like I want them. If not, I might just have one that way this year. In the meantime, I stuck these crummy little cages on there. I really would like to replace these things. I have a few good ones, but they've blended into the background back there where you can't see them. I'm having a hard time with my green beans back here. Something has been getting into the seed and eating the leaves out of the seeds before they even emerge from the ground. So I have a pretty sorry stand back here of green beans. That's what comes up, and that's all I'm left with, and then it dies. So I've replanted a lot of these seeds. Since I'm getting such a late start on this garden this year, I'm going to have a hard time pulling it through the heat of our summer. Generally, through the month of August, nothing will grow here. It's so hot. So I'm taking a slightly different stance on my garden this year. I have doubled up almost all of the rows, and I've spaced my pathways closer together. I'm hoping that all of the foliage will help shade the ground and keep it a little bit cooler out there. But I also risk the problem of not getting enough airflow, and with our humidity, disease can run rampant. So I'm hoping this will work out. I'm also going to install drip irrigation out here just in case I have to water, which I rarely do. But I don't want to put water on the leaves if I don't have to, being that they'll be that close together in our humidity. I kept this row of plants from my initial planting. They've been flooded. The ground is very compacted. The roots are very weak. The peppers are very diseased. I was going to throw them out and buy some more, but when I went to the nursery to buy them, theirs look just as bad, if not worse, than the ones that I have. They have the same disease, so I went ahead and kept these and kept the whole row. They look a whole lot worse in person than they do in this video, but I have pimentos and chili peppers that I want to can, and some California Wonders and some banana peppers. The new growth looks healthy, so maybe they'll pull through. And then I have a couple of slicing cucumbers here. I planted a few Israeli melon seeds here and hope to run them up the fence just in case the others don't make it. And then more pickling cucumbers. But these have been just collapsing at the stems because, like I said, they have very weak root systems on them, and I don't really expect anything in this row to do well. Then I have squash and zucchini here, and I'm still reading the old books, and they said that they would put ashes on their squash and zucchini plants, pumpkins, things like that, early in the morning when they're still dew on the plant so that the ashes would stick, and that would keep the squash vine borers away. I don't know if it would work or not, and I don't have any ashes. Whenever I think of a kitchen garden, I think of something about like this. But one of these books that I'm reading was written in 1856, said a kitchen garden was anywhere from a 1/4 acre to 1 acre in size. That's 2.5 to 10 times as big as my big garden out back. Here's something else that's interesting that I read. These are Jerusalem artichokes. I bought a package of these in the produce department of the grocery store last year for like $3, and I set them on my counter for about a week waiting for it to stop raining, and they sprouted there on my counter. I planted them out front in front of my asparagus. Then I was afraid that they would take over my asparagus bed, so I moved them to the field back here. A couple of them died, but these survived. But these old books said that they used the Jerusalem artichokes in pies with things like dates and raisins, spices, things like that, that if they are boiled like potatoes, they taste awful. And I know somebody, I believe it was Garden Girl last year, grew them, and she tried cooking them, and she was disappointed that she didn't like them. And they didn't like them either. They said the only way that you could eat them boiled like a potato was to add some butter and some wine to it, and then they could be palatable. But they really aren't good used as a potato. And another book said that they would slice them up and put them in vinegar and eat them like cucumbers. So that's the way that the sunchokes were eaten back then. This was back in 1856. And they would also use these for animal feed. They would plant fields of these things, and then they would turn their hogs into the fields and let them root up the tubers. So that's how they used the Jerusalem artichokes back then. That's how my garden's doing today, and I hope it helps.